Hi, and thank you for joining me. My name is Todd Reinholdt, and I am a funeral celebrant. And tonight, I want to share some thoughts surrounding loss, the upcoming Christmas season, the surreal events of the past year, and perhaps a future with a bit of light at the end of a dark tunnel that we've all been stuck in for what feels like forever. Tonight is for the families I have served and to anyone else who might be feeling alone or isolated. Even if you haven't lost a loved one, you have, without a doubt, lost a lot this year, and hopefully tonight will bring you some comfort. You are safe here. Be with me for a few moments. Let me try to help you feel a little bit of relief, a bit of comfort, a bit of hope. Throughout the year, it is my honor and privilege to serve families alongside some pretty amazing funeral professionals in the Edmonton and surrounding areas. And in a normal year, those of us in funeral service, we invite families who have lost loved ones to come together to remember them, to reflect on their loss, their loved one's life, and perhaps participate in something ceremonial like lighting a candle in their memory. We do this because Christmas is an especially difficult time for anybody who has experienced the loss of a loved one. We do this to surround them with love and comfort. We do this because this is what we do as a society when others are hurting. We be with them. We are not wired to go through this stuff alone. When we think of Christmas, when most of us think of Christmas, we think of family and joyful times and food and music and togetherness and a time of peace and Thanksgiving. But that is not the case for everybody, especially those who have lost loved ones the past year or two. And for those that are just alone at Christmas, it is not necessarily a happy time. And some will in fact dread it. Some will want it to never come, as the thought of it without their loved one will be too painful. First occasions after we lose someone are always difficult, for they tend to resurrect that sharp pain that we felt when the loss first occurred, and those first occasions also quickly remind us of how much we miss them and how much we long for them. If we could just have them for one more birthday, one more Thanksgiving, one more Christmas. With all that is going on in our world this year, we can't be together. Tonight, I am hoping we can take time away from our everyday lives to pause for a few moments, to remember loved ones who have passed, to reflect on our time with them, to love them, just as we have every other year, but this year from a distance, given what is required in the very different world that we are living in right now. Rather than light many candles, this year I lit one in memory of all of those who left us this year. I think it is equally important we reflect on the many other losses that we have experienced this year. Loss of life as we knew it, loss of jobs and income for some, loss of the freedom to gather in groups and to celebrate, loss of the ability to visit relatives and friends who are ill, in some cases loss of the ability to be with our loved ones during their final days and hours of life. We've lost health, we've lost homes. That list could go on and on. We have all experienced tremendous loss this year, and for many, it is overwhelming. We are a world grieving. And as an empath, I feel the heaviness everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, I feel it. If you have lost a loved one this year to COVID or to any other cause, I encourage you to reflect on some of the finest times that you spent and shared together, to reflect on the things that you laughed about with them, on the things that you maybe have cried with them. Remember things that they loved to do and maybe even things that they did not love to do. Remember how they made you feel. Close your eyes for a moment and give thanks for everything they did to influence who you have become as a person. They have left you many, many precious gifts. It is a matter of looking in the right places and you will find them. You'll see them. Many people and families have had to grieve alone or in small numbers this year, and alone is the furthest thing from ideal when we're grieving. We need each other during times of loss. My personal belief, is that one of the most valuable ways that we help others who are grieving is through love and affection and through connection with others. The sharing of time together, the shoulders to lean on, the hugs, the expressions of love, the fellowship with our friends and family, all things that we're currently restricted in doing for those we care about. I know that this is incredibly difficult, and I send so much love to those who feel alone during this time and during the past year. I want you to know that we are all together right now as much as we feel separated. Believe it or not, as much as we may be feeling disconnected from one another, it is my sense that we probably have not been this connected in some time. We have learned this year how something that seemed rather insignificant and far away from us can change very rapidly and come to affect every human being on the earth. Something we never imagined could have such large and far-reaching effects. I loved what the Dalai Lama said about our global situation. He said that the entire world is interdependent. The outbreak of this virus has shown that what happens to one person can soon affect every other human being. But it also reminds us that a compassionate or constructive act has the potential to do the same. His words demonstrate to me that if an outbreak of a virus starting from a single source can affect every human being, maybe, just maybe, an outbreak of love and compassion could have that same reaching effect. Loving one another, having compassion for one another, and simply caring for one another can literally reach everyone. All we have to do is practice it. We shift our focus from our daily dose of bad news and statistics and tragedy and panic to a place where we see all things that we are grateful for. We shift those feelings of judgment or anger, fear, perhaps hate, to a place of reverence, compassion, and love for one another. To understand that we are not enemies, rather, we are allies, and understand that anger, hate, and greed have no place right now, or ever, for that matter. And if ever there were a time that we needed to face something together, it is now. I share with you some words of wisdom from an unknown source who said, "I heard that we are all in the same boat, but it's not like that. We are in the same storm, but we are not in the same boat. Your ship can be shipwrecked and mine might not be, or vice versa. For some, quarantine is optimal, a moment of reflection, of reconnection, a place of peace, of rest, of vacation. For others, it is a desperate crisis and place of torture. How am I going to pay my bills?" Some might have been concerned about a brand of chocolate last Easter, while others were concerned about bread for the weekend, or if those noodles would last just a few more days. Some were in their home office. Others were looking through trash bins just to survive and continue to do so. Some have experienced near death from the virus. Some have already lost someone to it. Some are not sure their loved ones are going to make it. And some don't even believe that this is a big deal. Some of us who are well now may end up experiencing it. And some believe that they are infallible and will be blown away if or when this hits someone they love. So friends, we are not in the same boat. We are going through a time when our perceptions and our needs are completely different, and each one of us will emerge in his own way from this storm. It is very important to see beyond what is seen at first glance, not just looking, more than looking, but seeing. See beyond politics, beyond religion, beyond the noses on our faces. Do not underestimate the pain of others that you do not feel. We are different ships looking to survive. Let everyone navigate their route with respect, empathy, and responsibility. Folks, we are all tired. It seems from the moment we wake up in the morning until our weary heads hit the pillow at night, all we hear and see and read is virus, virus, virus. It has worn us down. It has exhausted us. We are all living through some very trying times in fighting an enemy that we can't even see. An enemy many of us have not experienced and hopefully never will. Let's make a goal to put that beast aside for a while each and every day and to try live in the moment. To live for a few moments with gratitude. And tonight is intended to be a time of comfort, a time that is completely love-based, a time for all of you. So let's talk about grief for a moment. When we think of grief, we automatically think of death and the loss of a loved one, and for many that has indeed been the case this past year. In addition to those losses, I described the many other losses everybody as a global community has experienced this year. From the beginning of time, society has come together to support one another during difficult times, like times of loss. It is what we do. We love and we support one another. And yet here we are in the midst of this exceedingly difficult time, being forced to do the very opposite of what we naturally would do in times like this, coming together. As much as all of that may sound and feel hopeless, there is much hope. There is a brighter future. This thing is temporary. There is a visible light at the end of this dark tunnel. We just have to get there. This does not mean that we are there at the end of that tunnel yet, but it is in sight. I think about the snow shed tunnels when you are driving through the Rogers Pass and how that when you enter them, everything is suddenly different and dark. You can see the end of the tunnel off in the distance, that daylight. And if you're like me, a bit of claustrophobia sets in, but I focus on that daylight ahead and it helps me cope better in getting through that dark tunnel. I think the same can be said for this pandemic tunnel. It is uncomfortable, but look ahead and see the light. It will make your time in the tunnel more bearable. We are an intelligent society and we are figuring this challenge out. There are advances every day in how we treat those who are ill. There are advances every day in the development of vaccines. Vaccine that has already made its way into the arms of some of our most vulnerable and our frontline workers. It has begun. So if one thinks about what the human race has conquered and overcome in its history, we must be confident that this too will be won. As my grandmother used to say, this too shall pass. Our challenge is to stay somewhat positive and balanced in the meantime. I am one of those who lives alone, and sometimes when I am feeling extremely sad or overwhelmed by it all, I sit back and I reflect on the entire experience, and I look for anything in that darkness that will help me. Gratitude is one that I have found most helpful. I have gratitude that as a society, we had the science and intelligence to identify that a problem was developing and spreading quickly. I imagine the consequences had we not known this beast was making its way through our society. I have gratitude that we live where we do and that we have the resources in place to fight. The medical equipment and staff to care for those affected, the science and technology that will bring an end to it. Imagine if we did not have that. I have gratitude that we have the means to stay connected, albeit it is not ideal or the same as being in the same room as our loved ones, just like we are tonight, connected virtually. I miss my grandbabies terribly, but I am so grateful that I can see them and talk to them online, see their little smiles and their giggles. Hi, Grandpa. I find that having gratitude in and amongst difficult loss brings hope, and there is much hope for our future. We do not know what our world will look like at the end, but I keep hearing a new and improved world. Time will tell. But as alone as we may feel right now, we are connected. We are strong. Let us continue to be there for one another with love and empathy and compassion. Let us support those who do not have the means to support themselves. Let's make sure that bellies have food in them. Let us move forward without judgment. Let us keep focused on that light at the end of the tunnel. We have an especially important holiday season upon us, a time where we traditionally gather with family and friends to celebrate. And many, like me, may be alone or not be able to gather in those large groups that we are accustomed to. Let us remember that this is but one Christmas out of many still to come. Do what we can to reach out to those who may be alone. Call them, video conference with them. Let them know that they are not alone in the world as much as they may feel like it. And remember that you are not alone in the world as much as it may feel like it. If you have lost a loved one this year, do your best to include them in your plans somehow. I know that it is not easy and many tears may fall, but maybe set a place setting for them at the dinner table. Write them a beautiful letter. Think about a new tradition that you could begin in their honor. Maybe that will be next Christmas, but it will still be for them. Say their name. Say their name. Speak of them. Share stories. Know that your hurt or your expressions of grief, that is not weakness. That is nothing but love. You don't need to be strong. Stop that bullshit right now. You need to be you. You need to follow your heart. It will guide you through this. It knows you best. Know that as far away as your loved one may seem right now, they are still remarkably close. If you are feeling very alone and desperate, please reach out. Reach out to friends. Reach out to family. Remember, we are all in this collectively, and nobody will ever think that you are a burden. People get it. They understand. So I thank you all for joining me, and I wish everybody much love and comfort this coming holiday season. And I look forward to a time where we can all be together again and comforting one another and celebrating. And that time, I promise you, is in the not too distant future. I personally plan on renting a local community center and having music and dancing and drinking and non-stop hugging without masks. That is my vision for that light at the end of my COVID tunnel. And you are all invited. Be resilient. Have faith. We are close. Know that you are loved and know that you matter. Once again, thank you. Thank you for being with me tonight. I wish you all much love and warmth this holiday season.